Okay, welcome everybody. My name is Katie Warren, and I'm with the Washington State Association of Head Start and ECAP. I am going to mute you all. Oh, but I think I forgot to unmute Victoria Moore, make co-host. So I'm going to mute you all, and you can unmute yourselves with *6, or you can use the chat. And since we have 66 people on this one, probably the chat is going to be the better bet. We are really happy to be able to host Victoria Hilt, who's one of our past parent ambassadors and an expert on strengthening families. She serves on the nationwide board of the Parent Trust. My gosh, Victoria, I screw this up every time.
It's okay.
This is the third one. The other ones are, is it the fourth one? This is the third one, and the previous versions of this for the previous 2 weeks are available on our YouTube channel, and I will send out all those links and things to the YouTube channel and all of that later this week. We have a few other events that are coming up this week too that you might be interested in. In particular, I was thinking about Friday when we have Devin Stubblefield, who is a financial literacy person who we have worked with for many, many years with ECAP and Head Start with parents. He is doing a session about sort of financial management during times of crisis. And I've read through his PowerPoint, and it is really a lot of excellent information. And that one also will be available in both English and Spanish. And I will actually link in the chat to our list of all of the webinars that are coming up this week and beyond, so that you guys can access those. I know that many of you are also family support and URSIA and maybe teachers, and so we also do a series of meetups, is what we call them, where people out in the field who are now isolated in their own homes, trying to support families and children, can get together on Zoom to talk to each other about what's working and what's not, and what kind of supports they might need. So I encourage people to participate in those as well. And last but not least, we have an infant toddler conference starting next week. And so if you are or have friends who are infant toddler specialists, you can send them that information, and I will include that in the chat as well and on the follow-up email. The other thing, for those of you who have attended previous versions of this, I know I'm supposed to be sending out the PowerPoints. I am 100% going to do that. I just haven't done it yet. So it just has not quite gotten there, so I will be doing that as well. And yes, the meetups will be included in the email. All right, so Victoria, take it away.
Thank you. Is the lighting better?
Yes, it's great.
Okay, I shifted, and I think, yeah, okay. So as Katie said, my name is Victoria Hilt, and I am a certified trainer with the Children's Trust Fund Alliance. Regarding strengthening families and bringing the protective factors to life in your work or just in your everyday actions. I'm also the co-chair on their Parent Partnership Council, and I work a lot with the Department of Children, Youth, and Families. They're my partner organization, well, agency, I guess, for our state. Today, we are looking at resiliency, so parental resilience. And I'm going to share my screen in just a second to start the PowerPoint. See if I can get this to work for me today. Okay, can you see the PowerPoint? Okay, I'm seeing nodding, so that's good. Okay, so today we're talking about parental resiliency. And I tried to start each of these sections with this reminder of how to remember the 5 protective factors. And if you've been coming every week, then you're going to remember this, but it's holding up your hand. And the 5 fingers, each one represents a protective factor. So we're talking about parental resilience right now. So that would be your ring finger, because your first commitment must be to yourself in order to be strong for others. The rest of them are all on here. I'll go through them quickly. Social and emotional competence of children is your thumb, because a thumbs up is one of the ways that you first communicate our emotion, right? Are you good? Good, okay. My daughter's teacher uses that right now with their Zoom classes, right? So she says, do you guys understand me? But she can't hear them, so they give a thumbs up or a thumbs down. So remember that one. Your index finger represents knowledge of parenting and child development, because you are your child's first teacher. Your middle finger can remind you that social connections, because it should never stand alone. We all need a positive social network. Your pinky finger signifies concrete support in times of need, because it is the smallest finger and reminds us that we all need help sometimes. Today, like I said, we're covering parental resilience, because we really need to develop that in order to build strong families. So the essential pieces of today's webinar are just kind of covering the essentials. So what is resilience? What does it look like? How it fits into the protective factor framework, and everyday actions that you can do to build resiliency in your parents' or family's lives. There's 3 things that are common throughout each training that I do. The first piece is the protective factors framework, which you'll see later on and is reintroduced each time. And it helps you to understand and communicate the importance of how we can use the framework through day-to-day actions. We want to make sure that we understand how culture impacts families and how they might approach building a protective factor, and how our own culture shapes how we individually feel, act, and think, and react. And then the last part, which is, I think, probably the most important part, is understanding and viewing parents as valuable partners in every phase of what we do. So today's goals are simplified. Normally this would be a 2-hour training, so I'm just kind of taking pieces of it for you and bringing it to light. And that's to define and recognize signs of parental resilience, consider how your own resilience impacts your work with families and children, and identify actions that you can take to help parents build their resiliency. And I need just one quick moment.
All right, while Victoria works stuff out, I put into the chat the link to our webinars page. So that has links to all of the meetups and all the times, and then the stuff that's coming up over the next couple of weeks. And if you guys have any suggestions about things that you might want webinars on, or meetings, or something more specific, feel free to put it in the chat or send me an email. I am adding things every week, and we really want to be as responsive as possible to what you guys are experiencing and needing out there in the world. Ready, Victoria?
Yes, can you hear me? Okay, thank you for that moment. So talking about our goals. So the first thing that we need to do is define what resiliency is. And simply defined, it means the ability to recover from difficult life experiences, and often to be strengthened by or transformed by those experiences. Resilient parents have empathy for themselves and others, and generally have a positive attitude, and they can solve problems creatively and take life events in stride. They can bounce back from negative experiences. And I use this example a lot because it was often said to me, the protective factors are built into Head Start and ECAP frameworks in their classrooms and how they interact with families. It's a key piece of the performance standards. It's everywhere, but nobody actually ever told me that when my daughter was in Head Start. No one said, these are protective factors. This is what they are, and this is how they can help you. Instead, they said things like, you bounced back so well from that experience. And I thought to myself, like, oh, okay, great, thanks. But then when I actually learned about all of this, and the protective factors and everything that they were about, I realized how impactful it could be for parents to truly understand what resiliency looks like. And the word resiliency, because if parents start to use it more, their kids are going to recognize it and understand it better. And then they can go on to build resiliency within their own families. So resiliency isn't about necessarily how many bad things you've experienced in your life, or how difficult one person's life is compared to another. It's building up the ability of how you respond to those experiences. A very resilient person might have a dozen risk factors in their life, but because of the way that they respond to them, their life is actually quite strong. And somebody who doesn't quite have the skills and experiences for resiliency to be built up in their life might need more guidance to build that up. And I'll cover that later. Each time that a person has a challenge, our resiliency is tested. We might develop greater resiliency through the experiences, or it might kind of push us back a little bit. And that can also happen for somebody who has shown resiliency for a long time. They might also experience a setback because of a tough experience. And I think we just need to recognize right now the reality of the world that we live in with the COVID-19 pandemic and how we're reacting to things. And that is why Katie and I chose to kind of look at this specific protective factor in this third week. Resiliency and how we build it doesn't look the same for everyone. There are many ways for us to gauge how we handle the challenges and stressors that we face. On my screen, well, on our screen that you see right now, there are resiliency blocks. And I actually have an activity that I'd like to try to do. If you have the tools to do it, it's something that can be replicated with families that you work with, or just something that you yourself reflect on every day, or something that you can actually do with your children. So all you need to do this activity is a piece of paper, a blank piece of paper. And if you don't have a blank piece of paper, that's fine too. You can always come back and look at the recording and do it later. So the blocks that you see right now show a variety of foundational approaches, as well as some skills and actions that can be taken to build resiliency. The bottom level represents the blocks that we feel are essential to helping us lay the groundwork for resiliency. The next level indicates the skills we employ as we encounter challenges. The top two levels show steps that we take that will result in less stress and increased resiliency. The placement of these blocks often changes depending upon the situation we are addressing or the individual addressing it. The pyramid form can help us to recognize that each of us looks at a problem differently. Our approach is unique and over time can change and grow. As a parent who was led through a process as a parent ambassador and also with the Parent Partnership Council, I was taught to recognize my innate strengths that I didn't even know I had. I couldn't label them or recognize them. What does restorative mean? What's the definition for that? I believe it's important that we recognize that parents and families may not come to you with the skills to bounce back easily. That does not mean that they are unable to, or they never will. The parents and families who are helped to map out their resiliency, like we're about to do, will start being able to strengthen their skills and innately approach to life and experiences they have and build up that resiliency. And I think that's a really important piece to highlight because everybody's at a different place in their life. So how we use these resiliency blocks. You see them right now in front of you in a pyramid. Some represent skills, some are beliefs, and some are actions. I want you to just take a look at them and make sure that you understand what the blocks mean to you. Once you are confident that you understand them, map out which blocks play a critical role in helping you bounce back from a negative experience or challenge. So think in your mind of a time when you were resilient. It can be a small thing, it can be a big thing, it can be a work thing, it can be a personal thing, just a time when you yourself were going through this experience. And map out in whatever shape. It doesn't have to be a pyramid. It could be a circle. I've seen circles a lot because sometimes we go through a process and we find ourselves circling back on it to make sure that we're approaching it correctly. And map out those blocks. So right now I'm going to give you a few minutes to do that because I think it's a really easy way to look at how we approach things. And it's easy to replicate. You can do it with anybody. You can do it, like I said, your child, other families that you might work with, siblings, partners, parents, my mother. I like to help give these tools to everyone because if you have this tool, you can share it with other people. And when they understand it, when they understand that they have a very specific approach, they can strengthen that approach and change the actions that they may take to these normally stressful experiences. Now, I know some people in my life who are very faith-based. And every single thing that happens in their life, the first thing that they do is go to their belief system and they pray. Before they decide what they're going to do, before they approach it and analyze it, before they acknowledge their feelings about it, before they, talk about it, before they come up with a coping strategy, they pray. Now, I'm not necessarily suggesting that that should be everybody's go-to first block, but some people, that is the first thing that they do because everything after that, their faith says that will be led by God or whoever they're praying to. So that is one example of a difference in building up that resiliency approach, is recognizing and respecting the culture of a family, is recognizing that their first block may be based on something that you hadn't considered. It might also help you address why you might take certain actions before you've gathered resources or recognized the challenges. And you might even be able to reframe your approach to dealing with any challenges in your life. Now, I'm not going to force you guys to share them with everybody, but if you have done this and you would like to show it up, I welcome you to share that today on the webcam, but also you don't have to. But it is a really simple tool that can help so much. Very simply put, more resilient parents are stronger parents. And when you have stronger parents, you have stronger families. Parents who are more resilient will be able to take good care of their children when they're experiencing a crisis. And that essentially leads to less ACEs, or adverse childhood experiences. And when that happens, those resilient parents that have showed patience with their children in their day-to-day life and during times of stress builds a stronger, cohesive family, which helps with parental resilience. Because if a stronger family is there, when a parent needs to take time to build up their resiliency, they have the support to do so. So I have another example that I would like to do. I'm trying to be mindful of the time at the same time. But it's a very simple practice that you can do without any tools, without any materials. You can do it in just a day-to-day conversation. You can do it with family, with the families you work with friends, coworkers, whoever it's applicable for. So this is actually an old Quaker exercise. So what I'm going to ask you to do is put your hand in front of you and imagine placing in this hand a problem that you have. And imagine that problem right here in the palm of your hand, okay? It's like a circle. Now, I need you to raise your hand in front of your face, as close as you can get without it actually touching your face. So, can you see your problem clearly? No. Can you see beyond the problem? Does the problem make you feel closed in, as if there's no way around it? Can you focus on anything else? Because it's right in front of you. All right, so just go ahead and take your hand down. When this sort of thing is happening, it creates an overwhelming sense of emotion. I'm not going to label which emotion because for each person that looks a little different, but it's an overwhelming sense of emotion. And it can become the center of our focus. Sometimes we can't see them clearly, and therefore we can't look around for other options or people that might be able to help us. A key piece of doing this activity is to show that we are the ones who move our hands away from our face. We are the ones that have the ability to take the problem out of that close perspective and look at it far away. You guys can't see me, but my hand's far away. That's a very powerful piece of this activity, is to say, now move your hand away and can you see the problem now? Because it is up to us to move our hand away from our face so we can see the problem again. The initial solution comes from us, but it's influenced by those protective factor resiliency blocks that we looked at before. So this, again, like I said, is something that you can do with families. It's very simple. Anybody can practice it. Kids can do it. Put the problem in front of your face, now pull it away. What do you see? So this next piece that I'm going to walk you through is actually very new. It's a new practice that we're trying to implement to partner with our trainees. And it's called Conversations for a Better Normal. So April is, and I kind of touched on this last week, but I'm going to touch on it again because I do think it's so important. April is a special month where we recognize and realize the reality of Child Abuse Prevention Month and the efforts to prevent child abuse across the country. The Parent Partnership Council has developed some special tools on their site to help parents and families navigate the coronavirus time. Each week, there's a social media campaign, and each week they will focus on a different protective factor. this week it's knowledge of parenting and child development. You can go to the web address that's on your screen right now. There's an image and some suggested messaging and links to resources to help with that during this time. Also, there are some other tools that they've created.
Excuse me, Victoria, do you know
Yes.
if the website is translated in Spanish?
Some of it is, some of it is not.
Okay, thank you.
They're working on it. This is very, very new. So they've created these tools, and I'm just going to walk you through a couple of the questions today. You can answer them in the chat box, or we can just kind of cover them, and you can just consider them and consider asking families that you work with or just people in general when you talk to them during this time. And I would encourage you to use your phone, use the internet, and reach out to people, any people. People, we need people right now. So those questions today that I want to just get you thinking about, to think about our new normal or better normal. What are ways that you can remind yourself to deal with stress effectively? So I'm going to repeat that. What are ways that you can remind yourself to deal with stress effectively? And that's going to look different for everyone. But this directly relates to how resilient you can be as a parent and how resilient you can be as a person who works with parents and families, because they are intertwined. Because the next question is, how can you encourage others to do the same? They're directly tied with one another and directly tied with parenting. How can you encourage others to deal with stress effectively? The next question, and again, like I said, you guys can answer in the chat box if you want. I would love to hear your responses, but you do not have to. This is just kind of food for thought. The next question is, staying positive during times of crisis can be challenging. Our children and peers may look to us for leadership. How do you find the courage to lead by example in your family and community? That's a big one, so I'm going to repeat it. Staying positive during times of crisis can be challenging. Our children and peers look to us for leadership. How do you find the courage to lead by example in your family and community? And keep in mind that if you want to share your answers, they may help someone else right now who may not have a solution and could benefit from yours. The next question is, what do you need to know so that you can feel strong during these times? And how are you staying strong to face each day? We need to build up ourselves in order to be there for other people. All right, I'm going to go ahead and move us away from this, but it is something that I wanted to highlight and just kind of get you thinking about. All right, so the next thing that I wanted to cover with you today, again, being mindful of the time, there was a family narrative project at the Emory University. And these two doctors, Dr. Marshall Duke and Dr. Robin Feizusch, I might be saying that wrong, but the point is they developed this measuring questionnaire of, do you know? And it's 20 questions, and I would encourage you to look this up if you have the time. It takes about a minute to do, and it's very interesting. You can look it up online, just do you know scale. And it was 20 questions that sought knowledge about somebody's family history. The major criteria for inclusion in this set of questions was to test the knowledge of things that children know that they couldn't possibly know. So adult children, what is it they know about their family that they could not have known from experience because they were not there? Or because it involved family members that they were less familiar with, but the story was still told to them. And the study found that family stories can be transferred, and they seem to be transferred more often by mothers and grandmothers. They're the storytellers. And the stories are generally transferred verbally. We're a verbal speaking group. And they're normally passed through at like family dinners, family vacations, holidays, times when everybody gets together. And right now that's hard because we're having to stay apart. We're being told not to get together, especially with, for some people, Easter was yesterday. And that's the time when everybody gets together as a family. And now we're all in our separate homes. But what they found is that they often passed down stories that taught a lesson or helped their children get through an emotional or physical time that was rough. And they found that the accuracy of the stories wasn't critical, that wasn't really relevant. Did it happen? Did it not happen? Did it happen that way? Did they tell the same story, grandpa and grandma? But the important thing was that the story was passed down, and it was communication and celebration of the information. And it was like a secret family recipe for resiliency. Knowing your heritage and your family history creates a cohesiveness and contribute to a development of a strong intergenerational self, which directly adds to, I'm trying to remember exactly what the quote said. So I'm going to read the quote to you guys from the doctor that did this. It is this intergenerational self and the personal strength and moral guidance that seem to derive from it that are associated with increased resilience, better adjustment, and improved chances of good clinical and educational outcomes. So a person's understanding, or at least knowledge, of their family history can help build resiliency. That's not to say if you don't have that knowledge, you won't be resilient. It's just that those things that you might just kind of let roll off you because it's just that family story that's always told, actually might be part of why you are as strong as you are and why it can help your kids be stronger too. And if you pass that information to them, then you're continuing that cycle. So I wanted to bring that to your attention. Again, we don't have like hours of time, so please take a look at that, look it up online. The questions are out there. And I'll try to include them in the file that I sent to Katie. So in case you can't find it, you can reference it in the slide. The next piece that I want to talk to you about is how thinking about parental resilience fits into the Strengthening Families framework. So this is the pathway to improved outcomes for children and families. It essentially walks you through how if state, system, agency, program, and community leaders work across the system to build parent partnerships, deepen knowledge and understanding, shift their policy and practice, and ensure accountability, can have a domino effect that results in strengthened families, optimal child development, and reduced likelihood of child abuse and neglect. And you can see on the screen in front of you right now how program practice and worker practices can influence that. So if you work with a program, or you're with administration, or if you're a parent, it might be helpful to know that these things help improve family strength. So there are specific strategies and everyday actions that we can take that are particularly effective. So noticing family stress, listening to families, making referrals, and helping mobilize them is an everyday action that you can take. And different ways that you can do those things. There's different approaches, kind of like our resiliency block. How we approach it might be different, but if you are supporting the family in that way, then you're accomplishing a lot. It's important to make sure that all family members feel welcome and involved, and that caregivers are at the primary point in decision making. So if you are working with a family, whether it be in your personal life or through your professional life, it's important that the people that are the caregivers, that are the parents, that are the guardians, they're the ones that are right at the center point of making decisions. You're not making decisions for them. You're providing options and they're deciding. So to think about this protective factor, the Center of the Study for Social Policy identified those strategies that I just said to you as the most effective ways to help families. And you can see that here: respond to family crises and value and support the parents. If you do that, then the next thing would be to demonstrate in multiple ways that parents are valued. And I personally love these slides that give you kind of concrete, small, but significant opportunities to create everyday steps that you can do to help support parental resiliency. So how do you demonstrate ways that parents are valued? In your personal life, in your professional life? How do you honor each family's race, language, culture, history, and approach to parenting? It's going to be different for each. How do you encourage parents to manage stress effectively? Goes back to those questions that I just asked you. How do we do this right now during this time? When you talk to your family members, do you go over how you're dealing with stress or focus on the positive ways that they're dealing with it? How do we support the parents as decision makers and help build decision making and leadership skills in a time where a lot of things are in question? And how do we help parents understand how to buffer their children during stressful times? One of the questions that I didn't ask from the tool that was just created is, how are you helping your child cope through these times? I mean, I don't know about you guys, but a lot of people in my adult circle are struggling to deal with these times. And our children are processing it, and we have to help them through this. And it's almost like nobody gave us the tools to deal with this, and we're all struggling to adapt. So how do we protect them and help them to process this very same thing? But the great thing is that by building parental resiliency, it doesn't really matter what parent stress occurs. If you can fall back on those resiliency blocks, then you can get through it and help bring your children through it. And that's the important message that we want to make sure that all parents get right now, is that it is possible to get through this time. It is possible to have your faith and have hope and get through all of these things and still make good choices and still be able to support your family and still walk through it step by step. Even if you need help, because maybe you're not born with the ability to bounce back as strongly as someone else might be. So this specific slide is one of my favorites because it does kind of give you like 5 things I can count, 5 things that you can do. And it really makes you focus on that. So that's what we covered today. What is resiliency? How does it fit in with all the other protective factors? Ways that we can maybe make small but significant changes to help other families. And ways that we can honor each other and our cultures while still building up our resiliency blocks. So if anybody has any questions, I'm definitely willing to answer them. It did not cover all of the material that I have. I could go for hours about this, but I also want to make sure that we address what's relevant to the times and to what you guys want to know about. This slide just kind of tells you what the Children's Trust Fund Alliance does and how they seek to prevent child abuse and neglect. And the protective factors are proven to help with that, which is why they trained me to teach people. And if you have any questions, here's the contact info. And I actually finished earlier than I thought, Katie.
That's okay. Thank you, Victoria. Any comments or questions out there? Can you include the language to go with the 2 hand activities at the beginning of the presentation?
Yes. So the 5 protective factors and then the problem one, I'm assuming is what they mean. I can include that.
Can you just, so I think this time you only talked about the 1 finger. Can you do all 5 fingers here for folks who haven't, weren't at the previous ones?
Yeah, I mean, I can quickly go over them again. That's no problem.
That would be great.
And I just realized that I had the chat thing set to notify me, but it didn't. So I missed your guys' chats. I'm so sorry. So I'm looking at them now. So the hand for the protective factors. Let's go over that real quickly. So do you want me to share my screen again to show
Sure.
the image?
Yep, that'd be great.
I find that the image is very helpful in sharing the 5 protective factors. So the thumb is used for social and emotional competence of children. And so that one's specifically focused on making sure that your children are equipped to deal with their emotions by helping them with the words. So a thumbs up is a way to communicate our emotions. So that's how you remember that one. Your index finger represents knowledge of parenting and child development because you are your parent's first teacher, right? Your middle finger can help you remember social connections because it should never stand alone. We all need a positive social network. Your ring finger stands for parental resilience because your first commitment must be to yourself in order to be strong for others. And then the pinky finger signifies concrete support in times of need because it is the smallest finger and reminds us that we all need help sometimes.
So
and the organization that...
Go ahead.
Go ahead. Oh, I was going to say the organization that made this was actually parent-led, and they have posters. They're available in Spanish. They have images that are available in Spanish. And the web address where you can find them is whatmakesyourfamilystrong.org.
Great. I will include that in the email as well. Remind me what topic we're talking about next week?
We didn't actually figure out which one we should do next, but I'm thinking it should be social connections.
Well, it sounds great. All right. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you to Victoria. This was great, and really appreciate everybody coming. And I will send you out a follow-up. So have a great day.